Only I knew what I know now when starting this game, I would have saved myself a lot of money and time. But just like some of you, after a couple of rough rounds out on the golf course, could and did result in me thinking £1,000 set of cavity back irons is going to be the answer. However, there is some merit of finding a set that is somewhat suited to your game even when starting out. And not only do I want to share 3 very underrated irons that are great for someone starting this game, but also share the basic knowledge that club fitters have when they're deciding what clubs would best suit you, and then you can cut out the middleman and save quite a lot of money. Therefore, all 3 of my picks are for 3 very different golfers with different bad shots, which means this video will be able to help a vast amount of you when you're growing and progressing through this game, and your first thought when you have a bad round isn't the equipment, but maybe the technique. Now, if you don't want to get too technical and see the advantages I'm about to show you, I do have 2 bottom entry price picks, and ultimately these are going to be great for just getting you out on the golf course and learning this wonderful game. My first choice is the brand Lynx, and I'll show you the prices of the Boom Boom, which would probably be my #1 pick, mainly because there's a good variety out there, as well as the obvious price point. My second one being Ben Ross, and specifically the Delta. It only came out like 4 or 5 years ago, goes for next to nothing, and arguably one of the best looking irons pound for pound out there on the market, as well as a very good brand that potentially doesn't get the same limelight that it probably deserves. Obviously those choices are for golfers on a very strict budget, and you will save money buying them in the first place. You potentially won't be able to sell them on as quickly, however, as the other 3 picks I'm about to show you, because with some of these picks, if you're patient and a bit crafty, you could probably play with them for a year or 2 and even sell them for more money. Now, what I'm about to show you won't stop your 40-yard slice or your 80-yard hook, but then again, nor can a brand new club fit. Therefore, I want to show you how to help that 15-yard miss to the right or left, or potentially get a bit more height through these different choices. Because if I'd known this when starting the game, I would have spent less effort, less time, less money, worrying about if my equipment was correct, and more about the important things that actually make a bigger difference, well, in this game. Let's start with my first choice, and obviously talk about why Ping is heavily underrated when it comes to second-hand equipment. And that's because it's the only manufacturer that stamps the lie angle on the bottom of the club. No other manufacturer does this. And let me show you why lie angle can be the difference of you hitting straighter golf shots. Therefore, I just want to know what your bad shot is to determine what lie angle you will need. And it's one of the reasons why so many beginner sets, regardless of height, regardless of arm length, are made upright. Blue dot, green dot, because that club fitter knows the player misses out to the right, so a quick fix, as well as the other key points we're going to talk about, is make it more upright, meaning it wants to go left. If you're a player that swings quite fast and your miss is this big hook that you have at the moment, well, making that lie angle flatter makes sense as well. The face is going to want to point more to the right hand side. Again, I must stress, just like all the other key points I'm going to talk about, it will make a difference. However, even with this red dot flat lie angle golf club, I can still very much miss the target to the left hand side. However, Ping is very underrated with their dot system, and when it comes to buying second-hand clubs, if you have 2 sets and you know one's going to hit the ball straighter than the other, well, obviously that makes it quite an easy decision. £200 for these is great. Mid-pandemic, this thing was going for £400 just because it fits so many new golfers to this game. Still got all the weighting, still looks clean, still looks good. Ping make tanks of equipment as well, by the way. God knows how many hits this thing's had. And to be honest, it still has a good amount of life left in it. However, at this point, you're probably thinking, Simon, I don't hit a fade. I don't hit it out to the right-hand side. My bad shot's left, and actually, I hit the ball quite hard. What should I be choosing? This next set is a great example of too many cooks in the kitchen. To be honest, there was so many different head styles at one point with this brand. This one from Callaway just seemed to be left to the wayside, but that's great news for you guys that want a bargain. And before we get into prices of the Pro version, the XR, and trust me, this is not for a pro by any stretch of the imagination, and probably adds to the confusion of why this didn't sell well whatsoever, it might be time to talk about these things on the wall, the confusion that surrounds it, and to be honest, it's the question that I get asked most. Simon, is this shaft right for my golf bag? Now I'm going to be brutally honest, and probably something that a lot of you guys don't want to hear. And of course, if I have a complete beginner walk through the door with a Titleist MB X-Flex shaft, obviously there might be some changes that will benefit him. But when we're talking about a 24 handicapper, 28 handicapper, talking about different regular flex shafts and different weights, I get somewhat exasperated as the data just isn't accurate enough. That 110 gram shaft might be great for you on a Monday and rubbish for you on a Wednesday. But there are differences, and I do want to express what the difference is on a very rudimentary level. I have built here an anti-right shot, and I'm going to stop talking about the bad right shot in a minute. Graphite, light, i.e. it's going to help with that tempo of releasing the club quicker. In terms of a general rule of thumb, the heavier the shaft, the less you won't want to release that club. Soft, regular, meaning that not only is it going to want to do this on the way down, helping that launch, it's also wanting to do this. It's what we call torque. The higher the torque, the more that club comes down. This is my anti-right club. 2 degrees upright, offset head, unlike the XR Pros we're going to talk about. Soft red graphite shaft. If you don't want to hit it right and you struggle to get the ball up in the air, well, this is basically the best alternative. And if you want to save a bit of money, get it in a G series. For you guys that hate that shot out to the left-hand side, however, you're quite fast. Potentially you come from the inside, but you need forgiveness off the toe and heel. You just started the game. You're not gonna hit it out the middle all the time. XR Pro's great, not as offset. And again, as the prices show, not necessarily a bad option. And I'm not just saying the XR Pro, you could go Maverick Pro. They're all pretty reasonable. And again, it's gonna give you those alternatives that I just laid out. Now, before we go into my last option and last mistake that I see when people try and custom fit their irons to themselves. God, this is forgiving because that was nearly missed. Hit that so far out the toe. Now I want to thank the sponsor of this video, which is Vice Golf. And because we're talking about beginners, I want to give you some pretty cutthroat advice when it comes to these. If you're yet to break 100, honestly, do not worry what ball you're using, even though I would say there's some merit to using the same golf ball every round, but don't spend a fortune on them. And to be honest, if you're still picking up balls out of the trees, that's completely fine as well. But just like the ball I've been using through the video here, the Vice Drive, it is worth mentioning Vice's promotion this month, buy 5 dozen, get 1 free. And as I'll show you here, it virtually works out at £75 for 6 dozen balls, which basically sets you up for the season. And as I've always said, the cheaper the ball, the softer it feels because of the compression of it. And for a lot of you guys, especially starting this game, a good feeling golf ball makes a lot more sense than potentially any statistical numbers, as your data is going to be quite varied anyway until that swing gets grained in. Last mistake, we've talked about shaft, we've talked about lie angle, we've talked about head type, even though we'll cover that in my last pick. Let's talk about shaft length. If I have no morals whatsoever and I want to sell a 6-foot person and above a new set of irons for £1,000, guaranteeing that you're going to get a lot more distance, this is the build that I would make. Inch longer shaft, very much de-lofted head, and when they do catch one finally out the middle, it's going to go an incredibly long way. However, when it comes to length, I've always fitted it for the sense, how consistent do you hit it out the middle? Can you hit the ball consistently out the middle with 1/4 inch? And then when you go to 1/2 inch, 3/4 inch, yes, you're getting more speed, but then the consistency of strike then starts to go. There's a good reason why a lot of you feel more comfortable over your 9 iron than you do your 5 iron, and it makes sense to have a progressive set. Your 5-iron needs more club head speed because it needs the help to get that launch and spin conditions right. However, just because you're 6'2", 6'3", potentially 6 foot with short arm length, you don't need an inch longer on the end of it. As a side note, some of you guys would suit an inch longer, but it's very rare, and to be perfectly honest, I always edge on the side of caution. The shorter the shaft, the more consistency you're going to potentially have over it. And if that wasn't the case, then everyone would be great with their 7, 5 and 6 iron, and absolutely awful with their 8, 9 and wedge. Let's talk about my last pick, and I've got a brand new option and obviously a second hand one. The last two options I think will suit a good 80–90% of you, but for some of you guys starting this game a bit later in life, potentially you just need help getting the ball up in the air, you need super forgiveness. Head design is absolutely crucial above everything else I've just said. My brand new options, the 11 clubs, they're pretty reasonable. You can even just get them 6 to pitch in wedge. Also customize as well, so length, shaft, everything that we've just talked about here. But in terms of forgiveness, the bigger the head, you have to understand the higher the MOI. It's not going to twist as much if you hit it here, the further back the center of gravity is. More importantly, for the same reason, a fairway wood will launch the ball higher than a rescue, even if they were to be the same length and same lie, is because the further the center of gravity is back, the more the shaft wants to do this forward bending on the way down because it wants to straighten out center of gravity. Too complicated. It launches the ball higher. Meaning for that golfer that has a club head speed of 60 miles an hour, it means you actually get a descent angle that's going to stop on the green. And descent angle is very crucial when it comes to obviously having control around the golf course. My second-hand option is the Cleveland Halo irons, 250, 300 pounds. Cleveland are essentially the godfather of hybrid irons for an incredibly long time. And again, they've been doing it well. If you want an affordable option, potentially at this price point, especially with the Clevelands, you're not gonna lose any money as they're quite unique. The brand of Cleveland and these hybrid irons are quite well sought after. But if you don't want the fuss and you just want a brand new option for a bit more money, then again, this customized option for 11, I also think is quite a decent buy. And that is essentially club fitting 101. Lie angle, shaft, length, flex, weight, head design, that's it. But don't expect a perfect fit. The whole point of buying second hand and somewhere close to your wheelhouse is that you get to try it on your own course, in your own conditions. And if it works, great. If it doesn't, you've lost 40 pounds on any of the second hand options that are stated here. And for me, that is a much safer bet than potentially a brand new club fit when you're just starting this game. Guys, if you've got any questions, sasgolfacademy.com. Catch you guys later.